Good evening, Florida, and welcome to Coastal Conservative News, where truth has a backbone and freedom still has a home.
We're bringing you the bold stories and the real headlines and the voices that matter most, right here from the heart of the free state of Florida, from Tallahassee to the Sun Coast.
We're tracking the political shifts, community victories, and constitutional battles shaping the future of our state and our great nation.
So buckle up, it's time to get informed, get fired up, and get involved.
This is CCN, Coastal Conservative News.
All right, everybody, welcome to Coastal Conservative News. We are live in Tallahassee at the Capitol. It is lobby days or Capitol visit day for a lot of folks. We have here downstairs, we've had FSU come to the Capitol. They're advocating for many things here. We have a couple of groups as well. Some school field trips have been here as well. And next to me, I have Cam Bettinghouse. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad to be here today. I think there's a lot of great bills this year to look at and see what Florida really has to offer with our current state senators and House representatives. So we'll see what happens. But super excited, and I'm glad to be here. It's going to be fun.
Exciting. Fun. We're not okay. It's very cold here.
Oh, it is? Yeah.
It's very cold. When we came in this morning, we brought donuts to all of the Capitol Police because of their hard work and what they do. We've already been filming a little bit throughout the rotunda, but as you can see, there's a lot of lobbyists here today, a lot of visitors. We've got some representatives hopefully to interview later, as well as some visitors that are from the Sarasota area, other areas along the Sun Coast. Let's get into some of these bills. We've got some notes here. So guys, later today we are actually going to attend the subcommittee for education, where they're going to be talking about the materials harmful to minors. Now, this is one of those pieces of legislation that you think is a common sense piece, right? Like if I said something was harmful to minors, as Florida statutes currently state, that would be easy for you and I to discuss what that is, but not so much anymore, huh, Allie?
It is very interesting that you have adults that pretend like they don't understand what harmful to minors means or what adult content actually is, as if they don't participate in adult content. The problem, what we're seeing, is that they're advocating for these kinds of materials to be widely available to our children, and that's not something that our children need to have access to them. There are so many different literary novels out there and topics that they can talk about and discuss that will actually expand their minds and not fill them with filth. So we are in support of any bill that protects the innocence of our children. What do you think?
Well, I'm curious to see what this actually changes from what we currently have, because I think a lot of it is the legal language and what the certain definitions of words mean, like what is harmful to children, what is that? So I want to know what they're gonna say about that and what is actually going to change with children. Is it going to be something that protects them, or is it just going to be the language for what certain companies can do pertaining to them? So that's what I'm curious about.
I'm also curious to see if there's going to be any teeth to some of this legislation that we're seeing. Will there be consequences for let's say, a library specialist that advocates for this or doesn't follow the law properly, or a school board member perhaps that doesn't want to follow the law? So what is going to happen with that? Is there going to be some teeth?
Well, the interesting I see with this is that the sponsor is Representative Bankson. Now, he's one of the ones that helped push and champion across the finish line the legislation that actually called out now in the penal code what grooming is, sexual grooming, and it actually tries to stop the abuse before the abuse happens, right? You're actually allowed to hold somebody accountable for that. So I'm thinking this is what it says: materials harmful to minors. It's going to redefine harmful to minors, revise the list of materials that you can have in the classroom, and here's the golden ticket for me. The whole process is subject to parents and residents being able to see. First of all, your tax dollars determine what's they fund what's going into the classroom, and parents, you're providing the children in the seats for the classrooms. So I think inviting both of them to the table is kind of interesting.
Absolutely, and there's another bill that I think it just explains terminology, which is something that you were pointing to as far as defining specific words. This is House Bill 245. The sponsor is Representative Jessica Baker out of District 17, and essentially it says it's replacing the term child pornography with the term child sexual abuse material, which I think that's exactly what it is. And it helps define that, right, so that people understand exactly what they're getting into if they decide to push some of this stuff.
Yeah, I also think it broadens it a little bit to what can be considered child sexual abuse material instead of like just a certain thing. It could be a lot of different branches of that, and what could harm children from just not exactly the definition of child pornography. Now it's broader. It's more. It goes into different things. So we'll see how that changes. But hopefully this passes this year.
Yeah.
And this is something that we want to see our legislators actually get done, and not just sit at the top in January and never be done.
Well, if we're
anything.
asking for max punishment, right, as far as the death penalty goes for child sex abusers, why are we not properly defining what child sexual abuse actually is, as far as what materials go, and reading materials and educational materials? And I think that opens the door to different ways that our attorney general can and our law enforcement can actually enforce the law. So
I agree with that. Guys, that first bill name was HB 1119. So reach out to your representatives, House representatives. Let them know you want to support HB 1119. That second one from the sponsor, Representative Baker, that's going to be HB 249, House Bill 249. And again, this is funny, but it's not funny. I had somebody explain to me one time at a local school district level, I won't say who it was, but they said pornography sometimes can be artistic in value. And I said, but not when there's children involved. Right. So this is your new normal. So that's why you're asking why our representatives, especially Republicans, making these laws, because you have to spell it out.
I think my follow-up question to him would have been, or her would have been, my follow-up question would have been, would you advocate for that kind of artistry to be displayed at a school play? If your answer is no, then why are you pushing for that?
I'm glad you said that, because the definition for harmful to minors in the Florida statutes was defined. It'll be interesting to see what they change it to. It was defined as something that adults would deem inappropriate or would not feel confident providing to young people. So, for example, when we went to school board meetings and we were reading excerpts from the books that were in the library, and somebody on the school board, usually a left-leaning liberal, will say, well, stop, you can't say that here. I'm offended. That offends me. That's exactly the meaning of harmful to minors. Take it out of our schools.
Right.
So you've got people pretending to be dumb, not so dumb. But anyway, yeah.
Well, and then I guess I feel like this is just the topic of what we're talking about. We're just going on and on and on.
Yeah.
But honestly, why was this not introduced the first time around?
Yes.
And second, why are we not, or even talking about the fact that the FEC already has laws about this? Why are we not just advocating to add that to the legislation on the state level, or reinforcing the federal law? I don't understand why that's such a difficult thing to do, especially when you have a trifecta here in Florida, which we have the governor, we have the Senate, and we have the House of Representatives, all are Republican. Why are we slow walking these bills and doing incremental every year something new to an already existing piece of legislation where you could put all in one bill and pass it? That's what the majority whip is for. That's what in both the House and the Senate are supposed to be for. We need people that are actually serving in our government that understand their proper role and responsibilities of the seat in which they have the privilege to serve in.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I want to pivot real quick to House Bill 197. This is about employment eligibility. You want to talk about slow walking a bill. E-Verify was one of those things that was touted in the state of Florida as leading the way. We're grateful. Thank you, Governor Ron DeSantis. But if you notice, what they did with E-Verify is they started off with federal employees only. Okay, so that's verifying that you are a citizen working in this country legally, but only if you work for the federal or for the government, for the state government or federal government. So then they moved it on to employers who employed X number, and I wish I knew the number, but X number of employees. So your larger corporations. What House Bill 197 does, this was introduced by Bernie Jacques, and also co-introduced by Barnaby and Miller. So this actually says that the E-Verify system will verify new employees' employment eligibilities, not based on the number of employees they have. So if you are a mom and pop shop, you have to make sure that you are also verifying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I have more questions than answers today because of all these bills that are coming in. But with this one, my father's a small business owner, so that's where I start to think of what these bills do to impact them, and how is this going to make the process to hiring people so much longer, maybe prolong how quickly they can get to work and stuff like that. That's where it starts to go in my mind. But then in the other end of it, it's like you got to make sure these people are really should be working here and not just any random person, right? So
absolutely, that's true. That's good. And a lot of people, some of the cons that I've heard about this is, what does this do to our agricultural community here in the state of Florida? There is a legal way to be able to work here in the agricultural community, and many people in our state know how that's done. So to pretend you don't is disingenuous. So I'll just leave that up to you. But guys, we're going to continue with more legislation here, and we'll be talking about more legislation here. Plus, we're hoping to be joined by some of the individuals that came from our own Suncoast community to come to Tallahassee to speak to our representatives. Guys, they'd love to meet you. If you have a chance, I think session is going to be going through February, right? February into the first week of March, and then you've got DeSantis with the special session that he wants to convene. So make your way to Tallahassee, to the state capitol. Call your representatives, let them know you'd like to meet with them. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Coastal Conservative News, welcome to the exclusive commercial break. I just want to remind you of something you might know about already, but might not. I wrote a book called Fearless Masculinity. As you may know, the left has tried to divide men from women, women from men, and tried to convince us of a lie that masculinity is somehow toxic. But I wrote a book. It's a biblical roadmap to discovering who you're truly made to be as a man, and that is your God-given purpose, your design as a leader, as a protector, and as a provider. There's nothing toxic about it. I'm live here from Tallahassee, and if you're interested in the book, go to CamdenBettingHouse.com to learn more, and I'll see you guys soon.
Hi guys, welcome to Coastal Conservative News right here in Tallahassee from the Capitol. You never know who you're going to run into, obviously representatives or even candidates. So I want you to introduce yourself, let me know who you are and what you're doing. You're a candidate, right? Or you were a candidate?
Yes, my name is Preston Judd. I am from Escambia County, and this year I decided to jump in the race for State House District 2, which is up there, encompasses Pensacola and some of the outer lying areas, because of the lack of voice that I saw coming from Northwest Florida advocating for, infrastructure, grants, property taxes, which is already going through, and a lot of the other issues that I saw that weren't being addressed to the Northwest Floridians. That was the main reason for jumping in. And then going along, I met Trey McMullen here on my left, and we have very similar views, very similar insights, same beliefs. Florida strong, the free state. So I decided today that I'm going to jump out of this race and jump over to his campaign and make a stronger run for this State House District 2 to hopefully in the future benefit Northwest Florida a little bit more.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh, okay, I got to get your response to this.
Thank you so much. Well, first off, I want to thank my friend Preston. This is nothing more than, where we come from. We're veterans, one team, one fight. I truly believe when Florida leads, America wins. And this is nothing more than a huge sentiment that for our district, the things that we're going to be able to come together with, rather than separating a mind, we're bringing it together, and we're going to be able to bring some great things to the district. So I'm excited for it. I'm very thankful, humbled for Preston stepping and getting behind me, but not just getting behind me, getting beside me. That is my saying, never above you, never below you, always beside you. So he is just the pure definition of that. I'm excited to work with him. I'm excited to keep pushing this election, and I'm excited to serve all you all.
That is amazing. Okay, can you tell everybody where they can support your campaign?
Absolutely. You can reach out to me at www.treymcmullen, that's TREIMCMULLEN.com, or you can find me on Facebook at Trey McMullen. I would love to have you. Phone number 850-203-3134.
This is incredible. I love the companionship here. I love the patriotism and the fact that you are willing to not even just understand that it takes a group effort to work together to make Florida better than what it currently is, even though, how can we get better? We can always get better, right? But I love that that you guys are working together in this capacity. That gives me hope as someone that ran for office before, and we have currently a school board candidate running for office, and for our youth to understand, right, future candidate maybe, that we can work together. It's not adversarial. It is about what is best for the communities in which we live in. So thank you so much for that. And we just got an exclusive, definitely unexpected, but we're happy to have it. So thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Anything else? Any last words?
No, I'm proud to concede to this man. He's got Florida in his view, and he knows what needs to be improved, especially in Northwest Florida.
All right, Escambia County, you know who to vote for. We'll see you guys in a little bit.
From the heart of Marietta, Georgia, comes a tribute to the spirit of liberty. Liberty Cigars, where history meets craftsmanship. Each cigar tells a story. The Founders Collection honors the visionaries who shaped a nation. The President's House Collection celebrates the leaders who steered it. And the Naval Series salutes the heroes who defended it. Handcrafted with precision, each blend mirrors the essence of its namesake. From the boldness of George Washington to the elegance of Thomas Jefferson. Indulge in a moment of reflection. Light a Liberty cigar and savor the legacy. Discover your story at libertycigars.com because every great nation deserves a great cigar. Liberty Cigars, smoke the history. And don't forget to use promo code OPENMIC for 10% off your order.
Welcome back to Coastal Conservative News, live from Tallahassee today. We got some great content coming. It's cold. You would think we weren't even in Florida right now, but we are. We're at the Capitol, and I wanted to get into one of the bills that I was pretty interested in that caught my attention because, as you guys know, I looked up to Charlie Kirk a lot. And there's actually a bill right now. It's a House Bill 113 that actually talks about the redesignation of state university and Florida college system tuition boards for the roads and certain things with Charlie Kirk's name. But one of the things about this bill was that it requires state funds to be withheld for any university that fails to redesignate road or portion of roadway within such a time period. So if you don't change it within this time, then you would have a penalty. So what do you guys think about that? What are your thoughts about maybe that limit of freedom there that you can't actually keep the road? Even though I love Charlie Kirk and I would name a road after him in an instant. But what are you guys' thoughts on that one?
Well, so it's funny. I was doing some research in the Republican Liberty Caucus, who here in Florida and probably in your county have different chapters. This was one that they opposed, and it was heart wrenching. They said for them to oppose it because obviously we all love Charlie Kirk, and we'd love to be able to force you to have to name a road after Charlie Kirk. But to the idea of withholding funds or the idea of if we're freedom-loving people, that really goes. This felt like a mask mandate to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
What do you think, Ellie?
I would have to agree. I don't think we should withhold funds or force. It would be like withholding funds for a college for not naming Martin Luther King Jr. as a street or a community hall or something like that. Like it really should just be. Maybe have them vote on it. Is that something that they would be interested in?
Level.
Right.
That's
Why not give it to the school? Like say, hey, this is someone that visited all of our colleges. He spoke about having civil debate and in a proper way, not in a hateful way. And he brought ideas and he was able to listen to people, really gave you the opportunity, gave you the mic. Right? So leave it up to the students.
I actually think that would get more than this is going to do because this is going to be a lot of people opposing it. But at the school level, with how the Turning Point chapters are expanding right now, over 100,000 since Charlie Kirk's assassination have been applied for in the country, all across the universities. They would get more done like that, and I'm pretty sure in Florida we would definitely get a lot of the universities doing that.
It just feels like a bill just to fill space.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or somebody. No, I'm not going to go there. Because I'm sure those that have presented this, Steele and Placencia, thank you so much for doing this. I'm sure you did it out of the love of your heart. But we actually have a lot of ways to mobilize the Turning Point USA groups within the state, and I think you're right, Camden. That would be really cool to see. Let's pivot real quick to Second Amendment because that's why we live in the state of Florida because we love Second Amendment. Okay, so there's an attempt. There's a Democrat. Not as in we're in the zoo and look at the Democrat. Not like that. There's a Democrat.
Oh wow.
Who
We're gonna get calls and emails about that one.
That's okay. I'll give you my number. That introduced a bill, last name Smith. It's Senate Bill 346, assault weapon and large capacity magazines. This is coming for, first of all, there is no such thing as an assault weapon because as you saw in Minneapolis, your car could be used as an assault weapon.
These assault cars.
These assault cars. But the large capacity magazines, so what they're saying is they want to limit the amount of ammunition, really, for the large capacity. What do y'all think of this? Second Amendment, no, shall not infringe. We might need to spell that out for people.
That's it. Come and get it. Second Amendment shall not be infringed.
Yeah, but I think if you can't define assault weapon, then how can you define limiting the ammunition for them? If you can't have that, then you can't have the other one. It's kind of.
So are we going to limit the speed in which a car can go?
Right. It's like a breakdown of logic. You can't get there.
Because you can use your T-shirt as an assault weapon. I can use my high heel as an assault weapon. I can literally use this microphone as an assault weapon. So what exactly are we doing here, sir? I'm just saying, just wondering.
Well, and so specifically it says they want to
get rid of arms?
They want to require certificates of possession. Certificate of possession. Did they not step into the last legislative session when we had constitutional carry? So this is an attempt. It will not largely pass, but that was cute, Representative Smith. So House Bill 133, a minimum age for firearm sale or transfer. This has been attempted 3 sessions that I can remember. A lot of us in the grassroots movement had issues with even the red flag laws, and I know why it was instituted. I know we did not like what happened in Parkside, but this was developed by Sirius with co-introducers Barnaby, Black. Oh, there's a whole list. Jacques. There's a whole bunch. What it's saying is the minimum age for firearm purchase or transfers. They want to reduce it to the person. So down to 18. So what they did is so they raised it to 21 with the exception of those who are in the military. I have a young person in my daughter who isn't able to own one. I want to know specifically what you think about this, Camden and Allie.
Yeah, I mean, as a young person myself, if I could go back to being 18 again, I'm 22 now, but even then, I would say if you can serve in the military at 18, you should be able to own a gun at 18. I don't know why there's a difference there. There shouldn't be. So that's really what it comes down to for me. It's that simple. If you can serve, you should be able to own a gun.
Well, honestly, in my humble opinion, as a mother who has also served in our armed forces, you're welcome. And I strongly believe that if you want to have people respect the fatality of using a firearm, you need to train them and teach them how to properly use one, store one, load one, and all of these things, and what the consequences are of actually using or firing a weapon, and that needs to start early.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think if this were to pass, do you think there should be a mandated amount of training for the guns? If you can own one at 18, should you have to have training at some point?
I don't know about mandating a training as far as that goes. I think training should be up to you. I honestly don't even think we need to have licenses, to be real with you. I mean, that's just my constitutional principle there.
That would be true constitutional carry.
You know what I mean?
And that was argued during the session when they went after constitutional carry, the idea that we really don't have true constitutional carry because you still they want you to some way register the gun. We love background checks. I think background checks are okay, but you have to be careful when they come for the ammunition as opposed to going for the gun, because that looks less threatening. But there's another one I want to skip to. I think it's on the next page. House Bill 41, Senate Bill 88. If you hear us say House Bill and Senate Bill, it's because you have to, in order for this to drive through the committee process and be voted on, the House has to have a version, and so does the Senate. They have to both move through equally. So this one, Democrat-led bill, they want to require background checks for transfer of ammunition. So you can see them trying to move through the background check process because we've largely said we allow background checks here in the state of Florida. But I want to ask one other question because I know we're all Bible-believing, church-going people. All right. So what I love is that Representative Grow out of District 23 and Senator Gates, they've teamed up to do security services on religious grounds. So this is HB 95, SB 52. What this says basically is that your church can exempt people who want to volunteer in this security services if they have a certain background, such as somebody that is a former, maybe they work armed security, maybe they are former military. What do you guys think of this, making it easier for churches?
Absolutely. I think this is perfect, especially when you see the uptick in just violence against the violence against Christians across the world, not just here in America, on American soil. You have people that are barging into churches, disrupting services. You have people in the past that have attempted to slay a pastor while they were giving a sermon on the pulpit, from the pulpit. So I do think that we need to make sure that our churches and our churches are protected, no matter what church you decide to attend. But yes, I think this is great. It's a great idea.
Yeah, it just makes it easier for churches to have security because sometimes not every church is as fortunate as other ones financially, and they can't afford the private security every single service, every time they want to do something. But this allows them to broaden that a little bit and say, yeah, we can actually have our congregation serve with us and have a security team here and open that up a little bit.
I mean, and you know what is really amazing about the church that we attend is they actually have a gun club. Wow. So they do have a girls' gun club. So they're training. They're not even just offering the idea, but they are a constitutional Bible-believing church. And so you have to have both. You can't have one or the other. You got to have both. And so I think it's important that if we are actually training our congregation on how to properly use a weapon, why not have them also trained or be able to provide security for that same congregation?
Absolutely. You know what I find interesting? This says that, and this is just some information I've gotten from the Republican Liberty Caucus, rlc.org. You can visit them. But it says this allows churches to designate persons to be armed security without them having to be hired with that armed security license. So it'll allow them easier access to armed security. But what I'm also thinking is that as a church, we tend to think of them as soft targets. And if you look in the past at some of these mass casualty, mass shooting things that have been carried out, a lot of times they look for the soft target. When I was out in California a couple of years ago, there were many churches that I visited that advertise. I mean, from the moment you pull on the lot, no gun zone. And I'm thinking, why are you advertising that type of a like safe harbor for criminals, basically? It's just my opinion. Yeah.
With the gun-free zones, that's exactly the targets that they go for, because they know, I can go in here and do whatever I want. There's no consequences.
Right.
And that goes to churches as well, just like the schools, but churches just as much.
Didn't
because
we have this in our schools?
Yeah, exactly. And so if we do extend that to churches to be able to have the security, then that just makes it even better.
Yeah. I mean, this also points to, I think we touched on it a little bit, but there was an ICE protester that barged into a church, and I think that making sure that the congregation can actually defend themselves is important. So I think this is perfect. It's proactive.
And by the way, you have a biblical right to self-defense, a God-given right. That's not something that you should be ashamed of or anything. You have a God-given right to defend yourself.
Well, and I'm just going to say that if Don Lemon shows up to your church and carries in a bunch of protesters, you have the right to defend yourself if you feel your life is so threatened. And I think churches are starting to realize, wait a minute, this isn't just Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is every church in the state of Florida that needs to be able to do this. So I think this is great, taking the gloves off, so to speak. Okay, real quickly, I want to touch on term limits, which some people like, some people don't like. So here's what this HJR, that's House Joint Resolution 27, Representative Holcomb brought this one in. This one amends the term of school boards. Remember, we went down to 8 years. This puts them back to 12 years, and also gives Board of County Commissioners 12 years. So what they're trying to do is, first of all, Board of County Commissioners right now do not have any term limits. No. So they're wanting to set that. And the reason they're wanting to take school board with it to 12, what I was told, is to just make it easier, 12 and 12. What do you guys think about giving school board members? I got one in Sarasota. I don't want to see him for another 4 years. But what do you think about giving school boards another 4 years, and definitely giving Board of County Commissions 12 years?
Go ahead. No. Go. Take it.
I was going to say, I don't see a problem with it because the people can elect who they want. And after 4 years, if you don't want to see that person back, get out and vote. Yeah. Get to the ballot box. That's the whole point. And so I don't see a problem with that, but I do see how if it goes longer than that and you don't have term limits at all, there could be an issue here. And that brings me to the broader question, why don't we have term limits for the Congress and the National Congress? I don't know why that's not a thing yet if we can do it locally.
Well, and I think so. There are constitutionalists that do argue about this. Our term limits are the elections, right? And it's every 2 years, every 4 years. It is your election. The only issue that I think a lot of other people bring up is that if you have someone that is currently sitting in the Senate and they decide that they don't want to sit in the Senate anymore, they'll go to the House. And then once they're out of the House, they go back to the Senate. So I think that's what people are concerned about. It's not necessarily term limits. It's just how often or how long can you actually serve in government.
But we do have a term limit for the president. You can only serve 2 4-year terms. So, I mean, that brings up the question, too. But, Michelle, I want to ask you, you're a candidate for school board. So what are your thoughts on the limits for school board if this were to pass?
Oh, I love it. I think if you are, so first of all, I like the 8 year right now that we have for school board. I'm okay with going to 12 years, but here's the issue. If you can't affect the change that you ran on in 12 years, there's something wrong. Get out of the way and let somebody else do it. And I know as long as we have what took place in 2020 with our elections, you fix that. You go back to hand counting, you get rid of the season of voting where you've got 3 months to decide and count ballots, then I'll tell you that elections solve this. Until then, I don't need a president in Joe Biden who's been in office as long as I've been alive. That shouldn't have been allowed. So I kind of like this. I like it. Guys, get out there and let your reps know. House Bill 149, and there is not a Senate bill right now. Oh yeah, election. Let's go right into election. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you mentioned that there's the House Bill 985, which is about voter ID, and it basically said it's by
Jocks.
Yeah, Jocks again. So it requires the supervisor of elections to verify applicants' citizenship status when they're going to vote. So what do you guys think about that? And especially in the last thing you said, it goes into the same thing. It's like if we're going to have these term limits or not, it does depend on how secure our elections are in the first place. So what are your thoughts, Ali?
Right, I love this. This is the SAVE Act on the local level, at the state level, which is exactly what needs to happen. If you have the president who's exercising his right and his authority to pass executive orders, it is up to the Congress to codify that into law, but it's also up to the states to codify that on a state level. And I think elections is an extremely important situation. You know, a nation that cannot secure its elections cannot long-term secure its liberty. And so if we are not verifying by photo ID, this is not real ID. Get that out of your mind. Real ID is very different. And we already have real ID in Florida. We need to get rid of it. That needs to be a petition to get rid of real ID. However, this is not that. This is providing proof of citizenship, whether that's your passport, and a photo ID has to be a part of your passport. So this is a no-brainer. I really think that this is important and it needs to pass.
I love that, Allie. I love it. This is, again, House Bill 985. Here's the interesting thing about this. A lot of people say it's too late for this bill, and that's because we did not have a Senate companion for this bill. Now, I personally reached out to Joe Gruters, who's the senator from my district. He's also the chair of the RNC. He said he would sign on once we had a sponsor, but we were reaching out to Senator Martin Lee from Lee County. Sorry, Senator Martin from Lee County. Haven't heard if that's actually been done. There are ways that this can go to committee, I'm told, without having the Senate companion. So let's hope you guys can reach out to your House of Representatives and Senators. HB 985. Again, all we're asking in this bill, if you get out your driver's license right now and you look at it, it's got like all these little emblems on it. You tell me where there that it shows that you're a U.S. citizen. There is no such thing on a Florida license or state ID. It's very simple. That's all we're asking is for something that denotes citizenship.
Why isn't there a companion for this bill? What is the problem with getting this through? What's the opposition? Do you know, Allie? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't have any thoughts, but honestly, inaction is obstruction at this point. Yeah. We've been talking about securing and the integrity of our election since 2020. Yeah. And the fact that we have a trifecta here in Florida, I don't care how you feel about it, it's slow walking, and it's on purpose when this is something so common sense and something that is extremely important to not just our national security but our state security, and making sure that we have actual citizens that are here voting, participating in our votes, whether it's statewide or federal. This needs to actually get passed. Inaction is obstruction at this point, and I know that all of you have taken an oath, just like I did, to protect and defend our Constitution. So please do that and stand by it. And someone in our Senate here in Florida needs to sponsor this bill. Guys, this is where you apply your political pressure at the appropriate political pressure point, and that is the Senate of the Florida Congress.
That's right.
Well, not Congress, but you know what I mean. Florida legislature.
Absolutely. Get out there and call and email your state rep. Let them know you want some support on this, but also the Senate. Guys, we're going to come right back with more talk on election news, because sometimes there are bills that are filed that we just want to make sure we comb through, and we have some serious questions about one dealing with elections. We'll be right back with more Coastal Conservative News after this.
Hello, how are you?
We are here to get an IV.
An IV. I heard you have an IV room?
Yeah, absolutely. You just head right back this way.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Knock, knock. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
I'm Sarah.
Sarah, this
Hi,
is Al.
Allie. Nice to see you.
How can I help you?
We're stressed. We're moms. We've got multitasking going on. I feel like I fall victim to like a brain fog a little bit. I don't know if that's my age or whatnot.
You need a little bit of clarity, a little bit of energy. Yep.
Is
Right?
there of an IV that you would recommend for that? Thank you.
We call this the brainstorm.
The brainstorm.
The brainstorm.
Come visit We the People Health and Wellness Center.
Where medical freedom exists.
Welcome back to Coastal Conservative News. We are here live at Tallahassee Capitol, and we're having a great time, but we are going to break down some more bills like we promised. And Michelle, you take it away.
Yeah, so there was one bill that, of course, we were talking about voter integrity and voter registration ID being one of that we want to watch. House Bill 985 doesn't yet have a Senate sponsor, but so we're hoping maybe one can come through for that. But House Bill 991 is the one that's being sort of championed all the way through, pushing through committees here. This was one introduced by Persons Malika and also Trabulski, sorry. This one is... There's a lot of comments about this one, guys. I've heard multiple things saying, listen, this is our version of trying to do citizenship, sort of similar to the one of House Bill 985, wanting to update and have the DMV have to share information with your supervisor of elections, some things that aren't necessarily right now in the state. What I am hearing, though, if you read through the bulk of the body of the bill, and you should, is that this bill wants more machines. I'm hearing that it limits the amount of FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, access that you have, does away entirely with hand counting. So these are things, Allie, that I guess they kind of trigger us as we hear what Trump wants to do federally. Not sure about this 991, again, being put out and largely as their election integrity bill. I encourage you to take a look at it and let your representatives know what you think about it.
There are other groups that are labeling it as an imposter bill, saying that it does give more use to machines. And with what we've learned about Dominion and Smartmatic, I just don't see how there is confidence in any of these voting machines, especially when you have Tina Peterson, who is currently sitting in Colorado jail right now for simply doing her job by auditing or taking photos of the bills, the ballots that were cast. I think that this is something that Florida State should just nix this one. We should not be interested in even hearing about this bill, to be honest with you.
This is something you see with a lot of these bills, though, is sometimes it looks good, and then you read into it, and it's not as good as it sounds.
Right.
And sometimes the legislators just try to do that intentionally. We've seen that on ballots before with intentionally confusing things that people have to vote on. I'm seeing that with some of these bills as well, as like, you got to be careful on what the title is and what it's talking about versus actually what is this going to do. And especially like you mentioned, because there's a federal part of this. It's not all local with the elections and everything, so I'm not sure about the machines and everything. But my personal opinion, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, we've had so many years of hand-counted ballots, and it was working fine, so I don't get it.
It wasn't until the machines got in place. It's quite incredible. But this is where your civic engagement comes in, is you need to call your representatives and ask them the questions. Ask them to explain the bill. Ask, do they support it and why do they support it? Not just do you support it, but why? Give me a good reason why you support this bill, and how does it codify the federal bills that are coming out about election integrity, and how does it differ from the one that is currently that we talked about a little earlier? How does that differ, and why is it important for us to support this? Why is it important for us to not support it? You need to make sure you're asking your representatives those questions.
Absolutely. I think we're going to continue to watch House Bill 991 as it moves through committee. Keep it locked here to Coastal Conservative News, because as it goes through committee, we will give you those call to actions. Maybe you have to make a trip here to Tallahassee and speak on behalf of this bill. But let's make sure we watch that. Guys, one other thing I wanted to talk about before we get to property taxes, which you'll see a special interview that we had with State Senator Jonathan Martin. He schooled us basically on property taxes and what's coming down the pike.
Very interesting. It was a really good interview.
It was.
I want to make sure you see that.
Absolutely. But let's talk about House Bill 917. This is being flagged as a health care bill. And so obviously all of our medical freedom moms and dads are out there watching this. This is introduced by Holcomb. There's a couple of questions. Do you guys remember when Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo stood up at a press conference and said, we want to end all vaccine mandates here in the state of Florida, especially in order for your children to attend school. And then DeSantis also was pretty strong on that. So a lot of us thought that, okay, that's the bill we're getting, right? No mandates in the state of Florida. Well, if you look through House Bill 917, this is not that bill. It has been largely watered down. There's only 2 vaccines that they're now saying that are no longer mandated. They're taking that from the federal government. But what do you guys think about this? Something starting in the grassroots, thinking you're getting one thing, and then it goes through drafting, and it's not really the same bill. We've had a lot in our medical freedom movement that say they're not terribly happy with this bill.
Yeah, that's the problem sometimes with these things is once it gets to this level, the citizens who really pushed it in the first place don't get as much of a say in it. You know, a lot can change in a bill once it gets to the point where it's in Tallahassee or at the federal level too. It's like the citizens want one thing and you're promised one thing, and so you expect that to be the result. But sometimes, again, like with the legislation, the language, the wording, a lot of it comes down to definitions, and sometimes it can branch out from what you were originally expecting. And especially with how people were really told that we were going to expect to have no mandates, no vaccine mandates at all, and to have this kind of reverse that a little bit kind of is disappointing in my opinion.
So there are a couple of things in here that I am reading that I kind of do agree with. I mean, it does define treated, and treatment. It authorizes individuals to refuse examination, treating, testing, or treatment for specified reasons, prohibits discrimination against patients based on patients' vaccination status, requires licensed healthcare practitioners to inform parents or legal guardians of a minor child of risks, benefits, safety, and efficiency of specified vaccines, which we already know that the pharma cartel does a very good job of hiding that information, the risks, the true risks, from its medical students and from its physicians. But also in here it says that it authorizes pharmacists to provide ivermectin without prescription, which I think is very helpful because, as we've seen, ivermectin is almost like a wonder drug. It helps with a variety of things, and I don't believe that you should have this as a prescribed medication. I mean, it's sold over counter in many other states and in other countries. But also, one of the issues that I do see with this is that it provides pharmacists with immunity from civil and criminal liability and disciplinary action. I do not like that. If you are not properly educated on proper risks, the actual risks that we are getting from the current FDA and the current CDC with the whole new board that it has been implemented through Secretary Kennedy, you are not going to give proper informed consent with the actual risks listed. And so I think providing any kind of liability-free incentives for pharmacists or doctors is a harm to the patient.
I like that. I couldn't agree with you more. I want to make sure that you understand, too, one of the things that this bill does is it adds an exemption for vaccines. They're calling it a conscience exemption. So obviously we have medical, we had religious exemptions, although your school district largely did not accept them, FYI, when that happened in 2021. So they developed a conscience exemption because maybe it's not medical, maybe it's not because of my religious belief, but maybe it's because I just don't want to. Here's the thing. And I think this is debatable, but I don't want to have to opt out of something. I can opt in if I want to, but to have our parents have to opt out, especially if they're signing their children up for school, I just don't think that that's feasible. This conscience exemption, I shouldn't have to be exempted from something being injected into me. Again, I think we wanted mandates to be gone in the state of Florida. We have a bold Surgeon General, a bold governor. I think this is an under delivery by the House. Do we like some of it? Absolutely, but I just don't know why we couldn't get it across the finish line. Let me know what you guys think. You guys comment below or email at contact@Coastal Conservative News, or better yet, contact your House rep and ask them.
All right, everyone, welcome back to CCN. We are live here in the Capitol, still in Tallahassee, and we have here with us my friend, Patty Sullivan, who has been a huge advocate for parental rights, and she has a bill that she would like to inform our viewers on. Could you just touch on it for us a little bit?
Sure. Well, HB 173 and 166 is the parental rights in medical and mental health. When the Parents' Bill of Rights originally passed in 2021, we didn't realize that there were some loopholes that were already in current statute. So we continued over the next few years to deal with parental rights and education, and we've made great advancement in that area. But in the medical and mental health arena, we have some things that we need to clean up. So we had the bills in the House and the Senate last year. It passed all the way through the House last year. However, it stalled and was killed in the Senate. So we're back again this year with HB 173 and Senate Bill 166. And so basically, what it's going to do is in the 70s, legislation passed federally and in all states that allowed children, minors, to get treatments for STD, mental health, and drug addiction without parental consent. And so it's in current statute right here in Florida right now. And then also children can, at 13, can get mental health counseling for up to 2 times without parental consent. So this was all done before it was proven to show that children can't make these decisions.
That's correct.
Their brain development doesn't allow them to make major decisions.
Right.
But unfortunately, what has happened with the medical associations, all the doctors here in Florida and around the United States have created policies that have taken those statutes and really hijacked them and created situations and circumstances that were never intended to make. For example, you can no longer see your minor child's prescriptions. I think it's 12 or 13 and above. Like if you have a pharmacy, Publix, Walgreens, Walmart, your child has to create a portal, a prescription portal, and you're not allowed to see their prescriptions unless your child gives you permission.
They're minors.
So they're minors.
mine.
They're minors. They're minors. And so I had a friend who actually had, and then here's another example, a friend who had her son, 13 years old, have a biopsy at Shands, and they would not let her see his biopsy results unless he gave her permission. So
Oh my goodness.
this is happening all over our state. And so 2 states have already passed this legislation where they're striking through this antiquated language from the 1970s. And so we should have done it last year. We should be leading in parental rights. We are leading in parental rights in education. We should be leading in parental rights in
the medical
medical and mental health
Yes.
and well-being of our children. Who knows best about our children's needs
Than we
and their
do.
well-being than we do? So we're back again this year to try to get it passed. I believe it'll pass through the House. A sticky situation is in the Senate. So we're asking for every parent, every citizen right now here in Florida. The last time we did this kind of move, it took the parents stepping up in 2021 and calling their legislators. I think they want to hear from us. And if we call them, if we call the Senate President's office, the House Speaker's office, in particular, if we call Senator Simon, Chair Simon, asking him to put it in the first committee that he's leading, the pre-K and through 12 Education Committee. So we need to do some calls to action in that way. And people can go to our Parental Rights Florida Facebook page. I do calls to action on that page and make it very simple. I give a sample scripts. And so if they hear from thousands of families here in Florida, I think we'll get it passed this year and restore. It's not about expanding parental rights. It's about restoring our parental rights and giving us full authority over our children's medical and well-being decisions. If there are bad parents out there, we know we already have current laws that we can address that. We have mandatory reporters. So this has nothing to do with that. This is about restoring parental rights and giving us the right to help with our children's medical decisions.
And it's also about correcting a legislation that's already on the books. So many times here in Tallahassee, we see new laws after new laws after new laws, and it's just as important to correct laws that do not properly impact our families. So I love that this is being taken up. I love the call to action. We'll make sure that we share it. You were a huge part of being the advocate for parental rights. Let us, our viewers, know, what was that battle like in 2023? And now that it's expanding even into healthcare, how do you do what you do, and how can people support you?
In 2021, actually, when the Parents' Bill of Rights finally passed, what people don't realize is I started in 2012.
Wow.
I was approached to get simple language passed on behalf of parents here in Florida. Parental rights are a fundamental right to determine what's in the best interest of our own children in regard to our well-being, education, and upbringing. Little did I know, just as a mom, as a citizen who's never been paid to do this, I'm not a professional lobbyist. I I traveled 5.5 hours one way, so it took us 9 years. And it's suddenly like in 2020 when COVID happened, I think the public school parents woke up, so they became aware of it. And even though I'd been kind of shouting from the rooftops for a number of years, I was so thankful that the public school parents suddenly became aware of the issue, and that kind of helped give us, and Allie was a big part of that. She became a friend during that time, to help us to get that push across the finish line to get the Parents' Bill of Rights passed. And so grateful for that. Grateful for Senator Grohl, who led the efforts as a legislator on that behalf. And then so I just continued behind the scenes to kind of research and find different things that were going on where we needed to clean up areas. So parental rights and education did a couple of things behind the scenes with that. Created a binder of over 2,000 pages for the research for the transgender and minors bill that I handed off to a legislator of the proper science, of the true science. So things like that, but just as a mom. And if people want to support, it's really about actually getting engaged locally on locally in their legislation with locally city council, county commission, school board. I think it's really
episode.
it's really about education, and we cannot just abdicate. This is the big problem. We cannot just abdicate our rights. So we're fighting to get our parental rights back. That's because we gave our rights up. And so we can't just keep pointing the finger at everybody else until we are willing to stand up, not only to fight for our rights, but also to become responsible for our children. And to raise them up to be engaged and involved in their lives and not give our rights away. So follow our social media at Parental Rights Florida on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for calls to action. I make it very easy. And if you can really get involved right now to help us get this legislation passed this year, if they hear from us, I think it'll make the difference.
Wonderful. So, I think we can make the difference. And thank you so much, Patty, for speaking with us. I'm so excited about this, and I can't wait to be able to give public comment. Lord knows it's going to be contested. So it's going to be a fun time. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be right back with more CCN.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to Coastal Conservative News. We're still here at the Capitol in Tallahassee. Of course, we're monitoring some bills, and we have a wonderful gentleman here. He's going to explain who he is and what bills specifically you are watching.
Hi, my name is John Labriola. I'm a representative with the Christian Family Coalition. We are a statewide organization that advocates for religious freedom, also family values and anything in that area. And we have a long list of priorities this year. Our top priority, though, is one we've introduced for the third year in a row now. It's the gender ideology pronouns mandate bill. Basically, what this bill would do right now in Florida schools, because of the freedom the Parental Rights and Education Act that was passed in 2023, in school districts, they cannot impose gender ideology pronoun mandates. So that means that not only are students protected from having to use pronouns that do not correspond with an individual's biological sex, but also teachers, administrators, they do not have to comply with these crazy pronoun mandates. But what people may not realize is that even though schools are covered, a lot of Florida governments are not. There's the state of Florida is covered under DeSantis's DEI mandate that says no DEI in any school. So that covers, in any state agency. So that covers the state agencies. However, counties and cities are not covered. And right here in Leon County, we're in Tallahassee, and this is Leon County. Leon County government employees still have to comply with these gender ideology pronoun mandates. Leon County has this training, an HR training that they do that tells employees that they have to learn even pronouns like Z, which you probably never heard of, but that's a pronoun that they have to learn. And it says that individuals are free to reject the decisions that were made for them, which is a reference to sex. And I think that that's highly inappropriate to force force or to indoctrinate employees to tell them that this is reality when they know it's not. This bill would actually not only end pronoun mandates in county and city governments, but also it protects employees from being fired for disagreeing with gender ideology, which actually happened in my case. I used to work for Miami-Dade County government, and I was fired because I wrote something online on my private time disagreeing with gender ideology, and I was fired from my job. And they cited, because Miami-Dade County has something that's equivalent to the, you remember the Equality Act that Congress considered a few years ago? It didn't pass, but Miami-Dade County has a version of the Equality Act, and they very rigorously enforce it. So they said, based on their Equality Act that they have in Miami-Dade County, I violated it because their Equality Act says that even if you're off duty and you're online or something and you disagree with gender ideology, you can be fired. So they cited that and they fired me. But that's why, yeah. So that's why this bill is so important. It would
And
extend.
again, this is House Bill 641.
Correct.
And I think so. Our viewers are probably hearing this for the first time, and they're probably wondering, what can we do to try to help you move this bill? Because what you should understand is this has to get in front of committees, and there has to be people championing it along the way. We have a conservative majority. Yeah. So what is
Right.
it?
So the problem is right now, this is the second year in a row that Representative Will Robinson has been the chair of the State Affairs Committee. And he seems to have a big problem with this bill because, after all, he voted against the original bill back in 2023, which was the Parental Rights and Education Act. And he has not a very good record when it comes to conservative bills like that. So he's been blocking this bill. And unfortunately, that has made it so it can't even get a hearing. Because as the chair of the State Affairs Committee, he also controls the subcommittees, and this bill is up in a subcommittee of that committee. And so right now, unfortunately, that means that basically he is blocking it. And I've heard that he's thinking about running for the Senate. In your area over there, like in Sarasota, Manatee County, so we need to make sure that he doesn't get that Senate seat if he continues to act the way he's acting.
So what do we do best, Allie, when we need to push a message forward that you were elected to represent us and that we want to get active and make sure that they do the will of the people?
Yeah, we do calls to action, and calls to action are super important, guys. We have a republic, and we can only keep it if we are actively involved in what that process looks like.
Right.
And so I think the messaging moving forward is that we need to make sure that we are activating our moms, our dads, our family members, our community members to call, what was his name again, Representative? Will Robinson, and tell him that we would like to have this bill heard at a hearing so that the constituency can make their voices heard. This is super important. You don't want to fire people for not complying with an ideology
Right.
they don't necessarily believe in. And whatever happened to equal protection under the law?
And not having forced speech. We saw that it was very important with schools. So I think everybody should get not only that protection, but here's the thing: we can't lean even on Governor DeSantis to do some magical executive order, because if you don't codify it into law, the next governor can come and with the swipe of a pen take it away. So guys, in the description here, we will put Rep Will Robinson's information, email, and phone number. We want you to reach out, let him know that we want to see this bill, House Bill 641, on a committee and moving through the process. We'll talk to you guys more after this commercial break.
They've censored the truth, manipulated the narrative, and told you to sit down and shut up.
But not here, not on our mic.
Open Mic with Allie and Michelle is the podcast where free speech lives, patriotism thrives, and the truth doesn't whisper, it roars.
That's right. We break down the stories the media buries, the policies that threaten your freedom, and the culture chaos Gen Z is waking up to literally every day.
From whistleblower exposés and global conflicts to the spiritual war on masculinity, we don't just talk about it, we say what they won't.
That's right. If you're tired of soft takes, scripted spin, and really plastic politics, it's time to tune in and turn up.
Because this mic is always open.
Hi guys, welcome to Coastal Conservative News. We have State Senator right here in Florida, Jonathan Martin, with us. We're getting ready to ask him what's ahead here in the 2026 legislative session. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what first made you want to run for Senate, and how long have you been in the Senate?
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Great question. I got involved in politics back in high school, started paying attention to, well, back then before really chat rooms on the internet, you could read the paper and you could find out opposing views of different issues. And there were issues affecting my local school board. And I thought there needed to be a voice. And so I started paying attention, started to get more outspoken. And I think that influenced my direction into college. I majored in political science. And so I've stayed in touch with politics, been aware of just a wide range of issues, and of course how government and how elected officials can affect our lives. So I had the opportunity to run for Senate 3 years ago. I was the chair of the Lee County Republican Executive Committee for 8 years before that. Nice. So I developed relationships with a lot of our elected officials, knocking on doors, making phone calls, making sure that good conservatives got elected. Yeah. And when there was an opportunity to run for the Senate, it was an idea that my wife and I decided, hey, this is an opportunity to help more people and use that position to do good and with a lot of the issues that concerned our family.
Nice, wonderful.
That's amazing. So as far as moms go, Well, not really. I guess everybody. What is one of the most exciting things that you've pushed forward as far as legislation goes in the last 3 years since you've been here?
So one of the first bills I actually got to vote on was the Step Up Scholarship.
Yes.
So I had, at the time, I had a kid in K4. I had a daughter in K2, and I had a son who was 7 months old at the time I took that vote. And one of the first bills it was a Speaker Renner priority. The governor was on board. The Senate president was on board. So usually the Speaker priorities and the Senate president priorities get voted on the first day of session. And so that was one of the first votes that I took. And it's made a lasting impact, especially with the job requirement that I have. I got to travel a lot. The flexibility that Step Up Scholarship has allowed my oldest son, my two youngest kids haven't been able, they're not old enough yet to take advantage of that scholarship. But not just for my son, but his classmates. We've seen the tremendous growth of many great schools in my district that the barrier to entry was just too much for most working families. So that access to education, access to options for that education has been tremendous, not just for my family, but those in my district. And I think it's also helped increase the quality of education in our public schools as well, because there's a real competition now. It's not just, hey, the rich people can afford to pull their kids out if they don't like the public school quality, or the rich people can afford to move to a better part of town. Now everybody has access to the same high quality education. So that's something I'm honored to have been a part of. It took many, many years to get that teed up, but it was really nice. It was fulfilling to be able to cast one of my first votes in the Florida Senate for such an impactful bill.
That's amazing.
That definitely it changed the culture of education here in Florida. I think the nation's just now kind of catching up to how wonderful that's been. I want to know specifically, because we kind of talked to our viewers a little bit about the difference, breaking it down in language that we can understand as lay people, because we don't do this all the time. What's the difference? How different is the House from the Senate, and why did you choose Senate? Because as I understand it, every bill that comes through a session has to have a House bill and a Senate companion. And it's really important to know a senator that has ties to grassroots, that helps get bills across the finish line. So I am grateful that you're in the Senate. I want to know why, because you've championed a lot of those bills. Why was the Senate so important for you?
Thank you. Well, my time as the Lee County Republican Executive Committee Chair, I got to meet a lot of Florida senators, a lot of state representatives, congressmen, our statewide elected officials. And what I've learned from having friends run for office, having run for office previously and losing, I actually ran for Florida House in 2012, lost that race. A lot of politics is timing, a lot of it's preparation, but also we see that, with business startups. We could talk about, let's just say Bill Gates. If he was born in the 1800s, would Microsoft have been developed in the 1900s? So a lot of it's timing, a lot of it's being prepared for the right time. And what I find in my life is it's God's timing. So that was I think that opportunity to run for Senate and being able to serve on this side, but also being able to understand the process from the outside before I got involved and staying connected to the grassroots, I think has really helped me be successful in the Senate.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people that don't understand proper roles and responsibilities of government, whether it's House, Senate, governor. Being that you are a senator, could you explain a little bit at the kitchen table level what a senator's proper role and responsibility is in Florida?
Thanks. Well, I think you got to start with the basics.
Okay.
What is government's job, government's responsibility? And my understanding of government, especially why our founders set our government up the way it was in the United States, government's job is not to give people things. Right. Government's job is not to take things away. Government's job is first and foremost to protect our God-given rights. Yes. So we have to understand that I don't give anybody rights. Nobody gives me rights. God gives me rights. Those rights are the same rights that God gave you. So I think that any elected official, whether you're president of the United States, whether you're the sheriff of a county, a state legislator, a county commissioner, you must understand that your job first and foremost is to protect the God-given rights.
I love that. Yeah, that's good.
And then it just trickles down from there. And then look, you got to make good policy decisions. The state role is a little bit different than the local role. I don't want to do zoning. I'm not set up for zoning disputes. Sometimes we got to step in. Sometimes there are crazy abuses on the local level and we have to set up parameters. We have to set up safeguards. We want to make sure that judges who get appointed, who are going to determine whether these disputes should be resolved in court or who should win those disputes in court, those need to be good judges who also stand the role of government and the role of the Constitution. So in the state, the way that the United States is set up, the states have the original jurisdiction. Governors are extremely powerful. The legislatures are extremely powerful. Federal government, ironically, is, despite the amount of airtime they get, they have very limited responsibilities. I think they've overstepped those responsibilities. The ones they were supposed to do, they're actually doing the worst job in protecting. But it's our job as state legislators to make sure that the local governments are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Pull back that power if there's abuses. Give them more authority if that's what the people want, if that's what they need, and then just make sure that we're not infringing on others' God-given rights.
I love that.
That's so refreshing to hear from a leader. That's amazing. So just to wrap it up, what are you looking forward to during this session? Any bills that you think our viewers should watch? Do you need anything that you need help from the public getting across the finish line? Any call to actions? Anything?
Thank you. I think we've heard a lot from the people after I filed the property tax study bill last year.
Okay, good.
And I think that there's a tremendous amount of support for property tax overhaul here in the legislature. I know the governor's office is working on this as well. I think that what's going to probably happen is we're going to focus on this in a special session, but there's ideas that are getting vetted right now downstairs in Plaza level, which is where the governor's office is, here on the 4th floor, which is where the Senate president's office is and the Speaker of the House's office is. There's a lot of input being provided for property tax reform. The question is going to be how big or how small. But ultimately, everybody who's involved in this wants the reform to work. They want it to pass. So what's really happening right now, there's a lot of polling going on. There's a lot of talking to our communities. We need to hear from you. How big is too big? Meaning, if we do something too big, is it going to fail? Right. Are the first responders going to be against it? Are the sheriffs or the firefighters going to mobilize against it if it's too big? But also, let's not waste our time and do it too small. So where's that sweet spot that's going to get us 60% of the vote? Understanding that not everybody in Florida who's a voter is a homeowner.
Right.
So are we going to be able to explain to the non-homeowners how property tax reform is also going to help them?
That's where messaging is important.
So absolutely. I think that's the important part is we got to have conversations about how any tax cut will benefit everybody. Mm-hmm. So if someone's taxes are cut, we've heard this, the discussion on the federal level about trickle down economics, the Reaganomics. Everybody's going to get the benefit if there's a cut for anybody. But how big is that benefit? Is it going to be worth voting for? Is it going to be worth the uncertainty? So we have to look at ways that are going to help everybody. And look, everybody lives somewhere, whether it's in a home that they own or whether it's in a home that they rent, or a loved one. Maybe they're in between. They're in college and they're sleeping at their parents' house while they're going back and forth to school. But how is that going to help them either immediately or in the short run when they go out and look for a job? Is it going to drive down prices for apartments? We have to look at that. And I think that's a big economic discussion that we need to flood the airways with those conversations. One of my favorite starting points for this discussion is a book by Neil Bortz called The Fair Tax. And Neil Bortz, not a Republican, not a Democrat, a libertarian. He was on talk radio for years back about 20 years ago when I was in school. I take my lunch breaks listening to him. But he talked a lot about how we could replace the federal income tax with a national consumption tax in the embedded tax that everybody pays to pay somebody else's income tax. Well, take those same principles, but substitute income tax with property tax. If we eliminated property taxes, if we eliminate commercial property taxes, I don't own a grocery store, but if my grocery store isn't paying commercial property taxes, my groceries will be cheaper.
Yes.
If the people that stock the shelves at the grocery store aren't paying property taxes, or they're not paying rent to a landlord who has to pay really high property taxes because landlords don't get to save our homes, then the place that I'm buying my groceries from isn't going to have to pay that person as much. Or if they do pay them the same amount of money, that person now has more discretionary income to then re-inject into the economy. But ultimately, you're finding a more efficient way to collect the revenue necessary to run government without putting an extra burden. Well, first of all, we have an entire bureaucracy throughout the state in each of the 67 counties that costs $500 million a year in the state of Florida to come up with your assessed value. So our property appraisers take $500 million a year to come up with a number that holds zero economic value. You can't take that assessed value down to the bank and get an equity line on your house.
Wow.
You can't get a mortgage based on what the government property appraiser says. It's a worthless number. But it costs $500 million to come up with that number.
Yeah.
So if we could eliminate that $500 million cost, collect the revenue where it's already being collected, whether it's a local sales tax, and then we give everybody the benefit of not having to pay a property tax, things get cheaper. Manufacturing would come into Florida. There'd be so much more opportunity. If there's a higher sales tax at a hotel, well, the hotel's not paying government property tax anymore, so they can actually lower their rates. So
You've been the only person that actually explains that at a level that people can actually understand. A lot of times we ask this question and nobody can explain it the way I've heard you explain it. So thank you for that. I mean, that's
amazing. And it sounds like he wants your input.
Feedback.
They want your input, your feedback. And this is the key, because so many times after something ends up on the ballot or people then are starting to get educated about it, they go, oh, wait, why did they do this? Well, there's a time for you to get involved, and this is your government. So
but I also like that you're trying to figure out what the intent versus outcomes is. What you're weighing what that looks like in real time, and that's why it's taking, because we have a lot of people out here that are just, they want what's done like right now. They're spoiled. We can't have instantaneous things pass, especially when it comes to legislation. Right. So the fact that you guys are taking your time to weigh intent and outcomes, that matters in legislation. So I appreciate that you guys are doing that.
Thank you so much for joining us
Anything,
again.
Last words.
Last words.
Else?
Just keep an eye on the bills that are moving through the various committees. Some bills are moving in the Senate, some bills are not moving in the House, or the other way around. Reach out to your elected officials, whether they're House members or senators, and let them know how you think about various bills. We get tons of emails from special interest groups. You can imagine the national money that's out there that hires people to either send emails in or come up here. They pay protesters. So make sure your voice is heard so that billionaires in other states aren't having a disproportionate impact on your elected officials that you voted for to represent you in Florida.
I love that. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to Coastal Conservative News. We'll have more from Lobby Days here in Tallahassee coming up. Let's move on a little bit to some property tax. What did you think? We just sat down with Senator Martin, and that was pretty good. Now, Governor DeSantis is going to call a special session to deal with property taxes, I think, as well as special member district or redistricting. Yeah. So what do you think about the property taxes, the way that Senator Martin described it? I thought he explained it very well.
He did. He explained it at a very basic kitchen table level, and referenced some things that I think only he can speak to, because he's had the understanding. Now, what I will say is that speaking with him and understanding the process in which this is moving, is they are actively working with trying to figure out what the intent versus outcomes looks like. So they're weighing what happens if we do this way, what happens and how does this affect the people at their kitchen table. And so he's asking essentially for everyone that is concerned about property taxes to reach out to your representatives and your senators and tell them what your concerns are. Offer some different lines of ideas if that's something that you would like to give, and really just have the conversation with them, because they really want to hear from you. They really are trying to do this the right way. They don't want to go too big and have it fail. They don't want to go too small and waste their time. They want to really find that sweet spot, and I think that's why they're really weighing in on what you all think, what we think, and what the intent versus outcomes are.
Yeah, and I do want to mention something about this too, is that this is just one part of the process. This is actually going to be a referendum on the 2026 ballot. So this is just the first part, and then once we get to November, you will be voting on this. It's going to come down to us, and it has to be the citizens voting on it. So what's happening right now is they're going to decide which proposals we want to go forward with and what kind of mix they want to bring in to see what's the best option for people. Because for one thing, as a young person, I don't want this to turn into something that increases sales tax, to try to pick it up and try to pick up the slack from removing the property tax. So we got to be careful with that. But there's so many things that are going to narrow it down and hopefully come to a good conclusion going into November. So we'll see.
I love how you said that. And one of the things that Senator Martin said is that they're really, as Allie doubled down on, they're looking for your input. They want to know how much of property tax relief is good and how much is considered too much. So you might want to get in touch with your local city and county commissioners and say, you know, what does this do to our firemen and women? What does this do to our first responders? We want to fund them, not defund them. So they're looking for your input. There's two bills that I want to talk about that pertain to property taxes. One is HB 149. This one was given by Representative Chamberlain, giving some property tax relief. This is not the same thing as the special ballot initiative. This is a little different. And there's also House Bill 71, distribution of funds to homestead property owners. That one was sponsored by Holcomb. This gives back money to people, but it does appear to be temporary. So we're keeping an eye on that. Again, I think they're trying to do something legislatively to try to help Florida before it goes on the ballot. So guys, you'll have to first register to vote. I believe you've got till July 20th if you want to be able to vote in the primary. And then I know here in Florida, our primaries are August 18th. So make sure you're registered to vote and get out there and let your representatives know. And Allie, I think what we're doing here is something that everybody at home should at least consider once in their life, coming to the Capitol, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think this is a perfect opportunity to see your Capitol, see what goes on here, visit with your representatives. Even if they don't have time to meet with you, just show your face. You want to be recognizable by face, name, and number, right? So you want to be able to build that relationship with them so that they understand that what happens when they pass bills or when they push forward legislation, it affects the people that actually care. So there was one thing that Senator Martin talked about was we get phone calls, is what he said. He says we get phone calls and we get emails from a lot of people, a lot of lobbyists, a lot of rich billionaires from across the nation, not just here in Florida, across the nation. He said, but what we don't get is we don't get a lot of emails or phone calls from our constituents. It is important that you wield your political power, and it requires you to take a civic action in our own governance in order to make sure that the representatives that you have given your consent to govern actually govern for you and not for the lobbyists that are calling them or that are being sent to their office to wield their bidding. That's so true. Makes sense.
And I even mentioned this in my first segment of the new year on Coastal Conservative News, is that now is the time to get involved. If you're going to vote in November, now is the time to start doing your research and look into these bills and what could actually come out of it for you, and actually put your family into it and see, hey, how could this bill affect my life if it doesn't pass? If it does pass, where does the legislation come into our lives? And it starts in January, because November is going to come really quick, and we got to do our research now so we're ready to vote.
I love that. Guys, we've had a busy day here. We've got a lot more coming your way from Coastal Conservative News. We're going to ask that you please like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you let your family and friends know 2026 is a midterm year. We've got a big governor's election, plus a lot of local, city, and state elections. We want to make sure you guys are properly informed, so keep it locked here. Like, share, and subscribe. That's going to be it for us here today, signing off from Coastal Conservative News, live from Tallahassee. We'll catch you next time.